Good evening, my name is John Adams, and tonight I will be showing you how to make sourdough bread. Now, making sourdough bread isn't really that difficult. I think people hear bread making and they think that it's this really tedious process, but at least with sourdough bread, it really isn't. It's super easy. That's why I'm making this video, to show you that it's not that difficult to make sourdough bread. It can actually be a little bit of fun. And at the end, you get sourdough bread, which is really tasty too. So let's get into this. Throughout this video, I will also be sharing some fun facts that I've learned through my research about this process. The first one being that this is an article written by Helen Briggs. She's a correspondent for the BBC. And the title of the article, at least what it was about, was that scientists have discovered that the earliest known evidence of bread making was from a 14,000-year-old dig site. Bread has been around for a very long time, and that's because it's super easy to make. People have been making it for a long time because it's good at what it does, it's really carb dense, and it isn't that long and tedious of a process outside of growing the grain. So I'm going to cut to actually mixing the ingredients so that we can get started on the process. Before we can begin mixing our ingredients, we need to know what they are first. So let's start with the dry ingredients first. In this bowl, I have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a little bit less than 1/2 cup of sugar, and 2 cups of bread flour specifically. No other kinds of flour work. And then this bowl is going to be my wet ingredients, sorry. This is going to be 1/8 cup of cooking oil. I'm using canola oil, a 1/2 cup of warm water, and a 1/3 cup of my sourdough starter. I'm gonna pour those components in now because I didn't want the water to get cold. So that's my starter. This here is going to be my warm water. And the next step of the process for both of these is just mixing them together some separately first. So we're just going to take a whisk with the dry ingredients and move them around some. This is so that whenever the wet ingredients come in contact with the dry ingredients, they don't start reacting with like the sugars and the salts first. You want it to be reacting with all 3 things at the same time. And then we're going to do the same for the wet ingredients. So we're just going to mix these around some. Really just trying to make sure that they're all mixed well, and that especially with the water and the oil, that there aren't any bubbles. That's what we're looking for. And then once we're done mixing them, independently at least, we're going to then mix them together, pour them one into the other, wet into the dry, and then we're going to immediately get this wooden spoon, always a wooden spoon, and start folding it into the flour. And you can't really see that on camera very well, but it's starting to become incorporated into the flour. What you're looking for at the end of the process is just a doughy texture. You'll be able to recognize it whenever you've mixed it around well enough. So I'm going to cut to whenever I have that texture, and I'll come back to you with another fun fact and some already mixed dough. So before I show you what the final bread actually kind of looks like, at least the mixed part, I'm going to share with you another brief fact. This is from lionbakery.com, and it's generally just the simplified process of making bread. It's what we're doing here. Bread is made by growing grain, crushing the grain into a fine powder, mixing it with other ingredients such as salt, water, and yeast, and finally baking the bread. As the text kind of lays out there, it's a very simple process. You can do it too. It's not that difficult. I mixed the bread together until it came together like this. It's just sort of a ball of dough. It has a doughy consistency. It's not hard, it's not soft. You'll recognize it whenever you try it for yourself. I'm just gonna let it rest in this bowl right here with a towel over the top of it for about 12 hours, and then I'll come back to you guys. So before I show you what the sourdough rose to, I'm going to answer the question really briefly about why sourdough rises in the first place. And I pulled this fact from exploratorium.edu, and they said that the reason that it rises is because the yeast from the starter begins feeding on the sugars in the flour and then releases carbon dioxide from that. So that's where you get all those like bubbles and pockets of air in your bread. That's from where the yeast was producing the carbon dioxide and making it rise. This is what my bread rose to. It didn't rise very high, so I'll have to figure out what I did wrong, but we're going to throw it into a greased bread pan for about another 12 hours and just let it keep doing its thing. So I'll see you in another 12 hours. So this is how my bread turned out. It hasn't risen very high. It's supposed to have gone all the way up this wall right here. And it really should have filled out all the corners, which I think you can see on camera did not happen with this bread. If you follow all of my instructions with the right ingredients and with a starter that I think has been fed more recently, then you should have a bread that rises better. But for now, I'm just dealing with this. I'm going to gently place this in the oven at 350 degrees, for 25 to 30 minutes. And I will see you guys after that is done. So before I show you the final product, the bread fully baked itself, I'm going to share my last fun fact. This is the most fun of them all. According to Statista.com, the leading country in terms of bread consumption as of 2015, so this is a little bit outdated, is Turkey, with approximately 104 kilograms of bread consumed per person per year. That was just a surprising amount of bread to me, so I thought I'd share that fact. It's the last one. I'm done now. Here is the actual bread, baked, fully done. It's a little bit short, you'll notice. It looks like the top portion of a piece of bread. It's okay, it's fine. Once again, if you followed my instructions, your bread should be 2-3 inches taller or so, and much better. I hope that this video has encouraged you to try the process on your own, and if not, just sort of made it seem a little bit easier than it looks at first glance. Thank you for watching.